What's going on, guys? We're back at it again with another episode of True Capacity Talks. And today we have the wonderful Ashley Trawick, formerly known as Ashley Kessler. Yeah, she just got married and she
Married
is
lady.
here with us. She what?
I said married lady.
That is it. Yeah, so we are going to dive into a handful of things. Ashley is a coach. As you can see in the top left corner of her screen, it says a live personal training. She's an online. Do you still do any? Do you do any person these days at all?
No, we do group meetups, but no like official in-person training.
Oh, so like social stuff, like social
hmm
get-togethers. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So runs a an online coaching company with how many coaches work with you?
I have 3 coaches who work with me.
Okay, 3 assistant coaches.
Yep.
Heck yeah. And yeah, we're going to be talking about everything fitness, nutrition, accountability, coaching, what's wrong, what's great, what we could do better, who's fucking up, and who's going to take the cake at the end of the day. First of all, I kind of want to jump off and just ask, how you doing today?
Great. Can't complain. Can't
Cannot
complain.
complain. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you are cool as a cucumber in the seat of the polygraph, and number 10, you are out of your mind nervous. Where are you at?
Like an 8.
Heck yeah. We love to hear it. We love to hear it. Let's go ahead and start on your transition, right? So you weren't always a coach, right? You were in law enforcement. Okay.
Yep.
You were in law enforcement in multiple different cities, right? You have a master's, you have a bachelor's, criminal justice, and public administration. Okay.
Yep.
First of all, why was law enforcement, local law enforcement, the first transition out of college, right? And then second off, why the hell did you leave?
Yeah. So funny enough, I actually was in college for nursing. I
Hmm.
am a big science geek. And I was like, okay, cool. I failed a microbiology class. So I was like, nursing, not it. So, so I was like, okay, maybe I could be like a CSI tech, right? I'll be in forensics. I'll be running the tests. And then I got into all the classes and I was like, no, being a cop would be actually pretty freaking cool. And there's not a lot of women in law enforcement. So that's the route I took. And then I got into law enforcement, saw there was a lot of changes that need to be made policy wise. So went, got my master's in public administration. During that time, I had a huge fitness journey of my own where I lost 50 pounds, really healed the relationship with food, and loved my coach who helped me get through it. And that's what inspired me to start coaching. I started coaching and I was like, okay, sweet. Like, this is what I want to do. And then it grew. I was like, this is just going to be a side gig. I'm just going to chill, coach some people, work in law enforcement. And then it grew. And then I had to hire more coaches. And then I had a full team working for me. And I was like, oh, shit. I need to pick one. So I picked this. And I've been rocking for almost a year full time. August will be a year.
Okay. So you're full time coaching now. How long part time? Like 2017 to now?
Part time, I started in 2020.
Okay, so started coaching in general in
Yep.
2020. Now,
Mhm.
did you go get a like a CPT? You do it online, do it in person, or like how'd that go?
Online, yeah. So I went through NASM,
Okay,
just from talking to different people. And honestly, I have a bone to pick with NASM with their training method, anyways. But that's okay. That's who I got my initial certification through.
got it. Yeah, I would assume that you and myself and many other people out there have a bone to pick with a lot of these certifying bodies because some of the fundamentals that they teach is one incorrect. And it's usually not in anatomy. And it's usually not in biomechanics. It's usually in methodology and application where you're
Yeah,
like, that sounds like the 80s and 90s to me.
yeah.
So I definitely hear that. Now,
Yeah.
going back to you and your fitness journey. So 50 pounds, right? What was the impetus for that, for that change?
Um, so being in law enforcement, you have to be able to run, climb, do all these kind of things. And I worked night shift. So all the food that was available was like gas station taquitos and energy drinks. Like that's what I lived off of.
Oop,
And
time out, time out, time out, time out. And so sorry to interrupt you.
that's
I also
okay.
worked night shift, right, when I was at Fayette County. Question: Were you when you say night shift? Were you in traffic? Were you
No, I
DUI?
was
What? You were just patrol?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Go on, go on.
Yeah. So that got to me over
Mhm.
time. Shocker. My uniform pants literally split down the side seam. And I was also on our warrant service team, and I was bottom of the pack when it came to like our fitness assessments and stuff. And so already being the only female, the smallest female, like I wanted to show up and prove that I could hang with the best of them. And so I decided to make a change. And that's really where it started. I was tired of not being the best.
Okay. So you were trying to, and was it a slow progression? Like you joined PD, you went to post, right? You go through the course, you get certified, you get pepper sprayed, you get tasered, all the fun stuff that we know and love.
Super
You
fun.
get through that, and then was it a slow climb to gain the 50, or
Yeah.
is it kind of quick?
Yeah, it was slow. I mean, I probably gained it within I say slow now and I'm looking back at it. It took about a year and a half maybe. So that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of weight at once. But cuz like in the academy, I mean, you would get smoked if you pulled out a snack in the middle of class, right? So like I was miserably hungry the whole time, but I was rail thin. And then once I got out and I was like, oh cool, I could just stop and eat whenever I want because I'm in this really cool fast patrol car. I can just like whip it around. And so I did. I would sit through a lot of Taco Bell, a lot of gas stations, just eating
Damn.
and sitting and a lot of sitting.
Yeah. Okay. And was that just at the PD? Because I noticed that you went PD and you went SO.
Yeah, that was at the meeting. When I was SO, I was already coaching.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I switched from PD. It was a blast working for a small department. I knew everyone, I knew the citizens. I had a really good relationship with the community. But I wore too many hats at that department. I was an accident investigator, so I was always on call for going out to all the fatalities and stuff
Mm.
like that. I was on our warrant service team. Um, and, I also ran our Explorers program, which is like for teenagers to learn about policing and if that's what they want to do as a career. And so, I worked all the time and I got burnt the heck out. And so I went to the SO because I was like, you know what? I just want to be a number. I want to be one in, 500 versus one in 40. And so I did, and I just got to respond to my calls and hang out, and it was great.
Yeah. And were you patrol over there too?
Yep.
Okay. So you were on patrol primarily at PD, but then wearing a bunch of other hats. It sounds more like you were like a community liaison more than you were like a police officer.
Yeah, it felt that way, especially once I was on nights my whole career. I love nights. I was really good at getting DUIs and making drug arrests. And then they put me on days, and I was like, this shit's for the birds. For the
Hmm.
birds. I'm not out. I don't like being like a traffic Nazi. I don't like doing anything like that. I like going after real criminals. And day shift was a lot of forgery reports, accidents, boring, snooze fest.
Yeah. Day shift usually is like that, and unless you're in Atlanta, I mean, there's shootings in the middle of the day in Atlanta. But I
What?
don't know about you. I'm not trying to work for APD.
No.
Period. End of story. Wouldn't happen.
No.
Although I did apply a long time ago, and I didn't even make it through the first interview. I looked around, and I'm not look. I'm not gonna say it's a race thing, but I was one of five dudes that was white there. There was no white women. Everyone else was black, and I didn't make it. I didn't make it past the first interview. And my
Is it
NCIC returned nothing, right? And I was at the SO at the time, and nothing, zero. So it is what it is. So you were at PD. You go to the SO. You're like, yo, I'm tired of this shit. Like I'm doing a ton of stuff over here. You had lost the 50 pounds before you went to the SO.
Yep.
Did you maintain that off at the SO?
I did, yeah. I actually, when I got hired on the SO, I had to tell them that I needed a weekend off because I had already scheduled my first marathon to run in Nashville. So I was in peak shape.
Okay. And now compared to there, how good a shape do you think you're in?
Not peak. Which is sad because I have another marathon coming up in September, and that's quickly approaching. But I hate to say this because I tell my clients all the time, like, you need to push through your excuses and continue showing up and schedule around that. And then wedding, honeymoon, move. I'm like, dang, this shit. It's hard to keep up with. So
Wait, hold on. Let's rewind. Did you just say Did you just say that the same thing that you coach your clients through, the same thing that you coach your coaches on coaching your clients through, is now catching up with you?
Uh-huh.
Did I just hear that you are an actual human and not a
Yeah.
robot? Is that what I
Oh,
just heard?
no. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Wow. I had a very similar instance where I saw myself doing shoulder taps the other day, right? In a high plank. And I was like, I think I look pretty good from all angles, but I don't think that I'm in as good a shape as I thought I was. This angle where I can see
I
the
thought,
side of myself and my back booty popping, but what's going on with my back?
oh, what's going
What?
on everywhere else? Uh-huh.
I'm saying, I was like, damn, I thought I was doing okay. But here we are. We cannot do everything. What when you were at the SO though, before, and you were there what, like 8 months, a year and a
I
half?
was there 11 months. Yeah.
Okay, and then just was like, it's time to go. Coaching is on the climb, and I'm gonna do that instead.
Yep.
No other reason.
No, that was it. Honestly, I would have retired from that sheriff's office. I loved
Damn.
everyone I worked with. Oh yeah, their staff was awesome. Leadership was great. It was everything that I had wanted in a department, and it was actually a really hard decision to make.
Was that Forsyth?
Mhm.
Mm. What cities are in Forsyth?
Cumming and Alpharetta. I think
Damn,
those.
you're with all the hot moms.
Oh yeah,
Goodness,
and my
goodness.
dad's playing golf. It
My
was
dad's playing
it wasn't
golf.
any bad time.
There's a lot of things going on in Alpharetta, Roswell, and the accompanying areas up there.
Yeah,
Um,
especially for it. I was real happy to get out of that beat and go up to Lake Lanier and get to chill a little bit.
yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So, as far as like the transition, right, from law enforcement and part training to then just full coaching, right, full coaching online, doing some
Mhm.
meetups, but literally running a full team online. Like, how did your experience in law enforcement inform how you show up as a leader for your team and your people?
Yeah, so I actually learned a lot about what makes a good leader and what makes a really piss poor leader. And a lot of that just really boils down to empathy and leading by example and not just saying like, "Hey, do this because I said so."
Mhm.
And really just staying connected with my team. The biggest challenge for me transitioning was I have always worked over 40 hours a week. I have always been in school through this point, like while working full time, plus coaching on the side. And then I got done with all of that and I was just coaching. I was like, I had like an existential crisis. And like I ended up going to therapy because I was like, I shouldn't be stressed. I shouldn't be stressed with more free time. But I was like, I told her, and I was like, I feel like a crazy person telling you that I don't know what to do with my time, and it freaks me out and it paralyzes me. And she was like, no, that's normal. And I'm like, you're lying, you full of shit. It's not normal. But yeah, it was really hard for me to adjust to be like, okay, I get to make my own schedule. I actually get to hang out with family again and take trips. And that was, and still can be a challenge for me, for sure. We're almost a year in.
Yeah, downtime is the devil for me too. I don't like to stop moving. And some of that might be informed by always being busy and being in school while also bartending full time, then moving into law enforcement while also running a business on the side. Like I think it's kind of similar there in the fact that like you're never not going and your days
Uh-huh.
off, you're doing something else. So
Mhm.
I definitely resonate with that. And I think that it can be difficult to slow down, feel guilty to slow down. And then also sometimes, I don't know about you, but you got to check in with yourself. Do you actually want to be moving at that speed all the time? Because
Mhm.
maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you won't know until you give it some time, and kind of
Mhm.
figure that out for yourself. So you say in your bio, right? You want to empower women in the gym through strength training. How do
Mhm.
you go about introducing strength training to women that have never done it before?
Yeah, so really because a lot of times with at least my clientele, that are coming in, they wanna start with at-home workouts, and they're like, "I'm comfortable with buying a set of dumbbells, resistance bands, things like that," because the last thing a lot of these women wanna do is get thrown in the midst of a bunch of men, sometimes women, like, throwing weight around, grunting, that can be really intimidating, and why, like, Planet Fitness, and I have a whole beef with that, but, like, why Planet Fitness is such, like, a why they're so popular, right? Because it's a judgment-free zone, but
Bullshit.
yeah, no, seriously, especially when that lunk alarm goes off, I'm like, "F you." So
You can say also you can censor yourself with the F word and any other words that you want, or you can just say them, right? They
Oh,
will go
great.
out. They will go out 100% uncensored here. So if you want to say them, say them. You do not have to censor yourself.
Love that. Thank you for that clarification. So good. Buckle up. So no, yeah, that's really what we do. We start with at home. We build their confidence with the movement. Especially like with online. So we're not, I mean, I'm not standing there with you. So
Mhm.
one of the biggest things is sending me videos, sending your coach videos so we get your form right. And then when you get into the gym, you're not doing a squat for the first time, you're not doing like any of these like a bicep curl or anything to where you're scared. You're like, oh my God, is everyone going to be looking at me? Which they're not, right? We know that because
Mhm.
we're all obsessed with ourselves to a stupid level.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just building that confidence up with the foundation and then introducing them into a situation with other people where they can feel a little bit more comfortable.
Okay. So you start literally everyone and their mother starts from at home.
No, no. It really just depends. I love when I get a client who's like, yeah, I have a gym membership. Let's rock. Because that just makes my little trainer heart happy because I actually get to like incorporate like barbell movements and
Hmm.
stuff like that are so there's just something satisfactory about loading up a barbell with
Hmm.
some I say that with my little marshmallows as I'm like bench pressing, but it's satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also got to be something probably in your head that it's similar for me, where when someone already has a gym membership or is comfortable enough to go to the gym and is comfortable enough to be in the area that people reference as sometimes the men area, right? Which it shouldn't really be labeled like that. But let's say, most people have an assumption like, oh, there's a bunch of meathead, bunch of dudes in here doing XYZ. It gives me joy to know that someone's already willing to be in that space, even if they don't know what the hell they're doing. Because
Yeah.
with my help, we can progress you much faster moving heavier ass weights.
Yes, absolutely. And that's like my favorite thing to teach women too, because I swear to God, I probably over 90% of the strategy calls I get on
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of women, they come on, they're like, the first thing they say is, I want to tone up. I don't want to be bulky. And I'm like, bruh, okay. Cause I used to think the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I usually throw on a sports bra or whatever. And I'm like, you think I'm huge? Like, as much as I want you to say yes, the answer is no. I wish I was just freaking humongo, but I'm not. And so I was like, you know what? I am progressively trying to lift more
Mm-hmm.
and more and more. And I sometimes outlift the guys in my gym. And that's going to be the key to getting you this toned physique that you want. That's not going to be, it's not going to be you getting bulky. You're not going to get there with your 5 pound dumbbells at home. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And how much like what percentage of the time do you think that you have to coach them through also understanding that like you can't under eat your way to being huge either.
Gosh, a lot of my clients. I actually have a pretty interesting case study up in my when I go through a strategy call.
Mhm.
And one of my clients who I worked with for 6 months, she came in drastically under eating. She was a small person, so skinny fat is what I call it.
Mhm.
And we did a reverse diet where we slowly increased her calories and implemented progressive overload with her training, cut out the cardio that was done. And she actually lost 22 pounds and totally changed her physique in 6 months. I mean, it was like a total body transformation.
I love to hear that. So for the people that don't know that are listening to this, talk to me about reverse dieting. What is it? Why do you use it? And is it a term that people should know?
Yeah, absolutely. It is, especially women. We're constantly told to eat less, smaller portions, no carbs, blah, blah, blah. And it scares us into this like really weird mentality with food and demonizes a lot of foods. So reverse dieting, the way I approach it with our clients and like the way I've trained my coaches to is to first, we do an observation week. I want to see where you're at before I start throwing things at you to do,
Mhm.
right? And so a lot of times I get women in who come in and are eating, 1,100 calories. I think the lowest I've ever had someone come in at an observation week was 600 calories a day. And I'm like, that's not even a full meal for me. Like, I'd be a hangry motherfucker.
Yeah.
So we'll do that, right? And then and I'll explain to them like the whole concept around like your basal metabolic rate, how many
Mhm.
calories your body needs just to do its like uh, basic functions, that supports your reproductive system, your breathing, your movement, everything. And so I'm like, okay, well, first we need to get you there. right? Let's get you there. And then let's get you to a place. We'll get you up to at least like your daily energy expenditure. So you're feeling good while you're doing it, get you in maintenance for a while. So everything's working the way it needs to. Most of the time our people, our clients are sleeping better. They have better mood regulation. Sex drive is higher, like all of these great things. And they're like, oh my God, this is how I was supposed to be feeling the whole time. And then we enter a fat loss phase if that's your goal, or if weight gain's your goal, we'll keep pushing. We'll keep pushing the food. So that's how we approach it.
Beautiful. And for also those that have little to no idea how to do this or what's going on, what kind of increments are you increasing your caloric intake in to get to a place where then you can have an understanding of how your body's actually going to react to it?
Yeah, so it really depends on the person and like their biofeedback, so how their body is responding. And so we look at that by looking at not only their weight, their progress pictures, their measurements, everything like that, how they're feeling. And so sometimes I can increase it by 50 calories a week. Sometimes it's 50 calories every 2 weeks. Sometimes I can do it 100 calories a week. And it really just depends. Like if we increase it too much for that client specifically, and we start seeing body fat come on, unfavorable changes, then we'll dial it back in and realize, okay, hey, we need to slow this process down. But that's why it's important to check in week to week and be so nuanced with it during this, because everybody's different. There's not just like a one size fits all on how much to increase over time, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And y'all specifically, when you're talking about increasing, 50 to 100 calories a week, is that based on whatever their observation week is at?
Like that number of 50 to 100, that's just what in our experience, what I found to be the most effective, like range.
Okay. And that's per week, not per day?
Per week, yes.
Yeah, that's not a lot of calories. Sheesh. Right. At 100, divided by 7, we're talking, is that, like 15?
Hold on. Now you're having me confused. No, it's by day. It is definitely.
It has to be by day. It has to be by day.
You just had me confused. So, but I'm changing. Okay. Yeah. So 50 calories a day added on to your daily intake.
Yeah.
But like every week we're checking in with your biofeedback.
Yeah. So you're checking in for feedback on the week, but you're adding those calories per day. So at the end of the week, you have somewhere normally between 350 and 700 increased of calories.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. That makes way more sense. The way that y'all are doing, I was like, damn, y'all must have something down to a science. That is teeny. That is teeny. That makes more sense. So for everyone that's listening, it is literally biofeedback and check-ins over the week, increasing it by the day from the observation week, right? That's kind of where you start and then go from there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sick. Okay. I'm curious. Sorry, there's a fly. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm very curious where you think that y'all specifically at Alive, or you personally, Ashley, right? Unaffiliated or away from your coaching, where you think that you differ in specific hot button things in the health and wellness industry. Like, where do you think that y'all or you personally go against the grain for what most people teach?
That's a good question. I don't know, because I feel like, thankfully, on social media nowadays, I feel like we're starting to see a change in the narrative when it comes to fitness topics. And, we're getting away from, for the most part, like carbs are bad, super low calorie is like highlight. I feel like we're starting, at least maybe it's just the content I'm consuming, we're starting to get away. That's not to say there's not these crazy influencers who are out there pushing like insane things. I think what really makes us different, what makes me different is I always, whether it's me, whether it's the coaches I bring on, I make sure that they've had their own journey and can understand the mindset around a lot of these changes that are happening. Because if your brain isn't in it, your body's not going to respond. You're not going to be able to see the changes that you want. And I think it's important to work with people who have been through that, who understand it, because when you, unfortunately, sometimes with trainers who have always been just have been blessed by the genetics gods, okay, who have always looked great, haven't really had to work for it. It's really hard to relate to a client on a level when they are, possibly, 50, 100 pounds overweight. And there's a lot of mindset things that you have to work through.
Okay. And so if you had to say what the average person on your team has lost before they started working with you, I mean, what would that be?
Average is probably, I would say anywhere between like 30 and 40 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're on the high end of what you and your coaches have lost before you started?
Say that, rephrase that for me.
You lost 50, right?
Yes.
You lost 50
Yeah.
pounds. You're saying that between you and your coaches, if you had to average it out, probably everyone's around 30 to 40. So you're probably on the high end of the amount that you've lost comparative to your coaches.
Correct. Yeah. And then actually one of my coaches, she actually didn't go through a weight loss journey. She went through a fertility and hormone journey. So
Hmm.
it's like it doesn't necessarily with the two first hires were weight
Hmm.
loss journeys
Hmm.
and just like total body recomposition. Like my one girl, Katie, she is a badass bodybuilder now, even though she doesn't coach bodybuilding, but she went through this crazy change. And yeah, so really no matter what the changes, whether it be weight loss or, a especially fertility journey and hormones, because I feel like that's buzzwords right now in the fitness space.
100%. And I'm glad that you brought that up because
Yeah.
I had a client that just had her baby. So she spoke about this publicly, and I'll just use her first name because she spoke very publicly about this in a testimonial on video with me. And
Like,
that's out in the ether. So I think that it's fair game to talk about. But her name is Omnia, and she has PCOS, right? And with us, she came in. Uh, OB, right, and GP said, hey, you're not going to be able to probably sustain pregnancy, if even get pregnant,
dude,
because of where your body composition is right now. Like fertility wise, there's a very low chance that that can actually happen. And then there's a very even lower chance that you'll have a successful pregnancy where you're at today. That happened before we started coaching. But what's very interesting to me is that we didn't do very many crazy things, right? We had
mhm,
her walking consistently. We had her protein upped. I got her carb sources more from fruits and veggies, right, than
yep,
starches.
yep.
And we worked together for 7 months, right? At the end of coaching, the last month of coaching, she was pregnant.
Listen,
And not that long ago, right? Not that long ago, I think like a few weeks, she had her baby successfully.
that's
And
awesome.
it's wild to me that a little bit of intervention, right? And it's not a metformin intervention, and it's not a clinical dietitian
Yep.
intervention. It's not a medical intervention, because straight up, I mean, it's not within scope for me to do medical nutrition, period, end of story. And I told her jumping in, I was like, look,
Right.
I'm a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian, right? So if that's what you're looking for, that's not here. I can tell you that the goals that you have, I can't promise you pregnancy. I can't
Yeah.
promise you fertility. What I can promise you that if you follow the system that we have, you will, if you're our worst client, lose this. Our
Mhm.
worst client ever, lose this. So if that is cool with you, well, let's rock and roll. And anything that comes on top is great. It
Yep. And that
literally, go
that
ahead.
gives me chills because I mean, especially as a woman who like if that is your goal, if being a mother is your goal, to sit down in a doctor's office in this like cold, harsh setting and to be
Mm-hmm.
told like no, your body is literally working against you right now and
Mm-hmm.
doing this. And that can be a really hard pill to swallow. And we work with a lot of women with PCOS, and it's unfortunate that doctors just really don't have the time. And it's not their fault. They just don't have the time to sit down and walk through these lifestyle changes that can dramatically change their life. And I love that you said, like, it's not a metformin, it's not an Ozempic fix, it's not like all these crazes right now. It's literally just these lifestyle changes that can really it makes your body happy. I mean, we've had a few clients who, some of the wins we'll be posting in our Fit Fam group. It's like, oh, it's so funny because we have men in our group too, but it's all together. And I'll be like, I got my period for the first time. And they're like so excited. And then like they'll be sharing like ultrasound pictures and like when the
Mm-hmm.
baby gets delivered. And it is just like a really, I don't know, it like sets my soul on fire to see, it's not just about weight loss. It's not just about like getting freaking yoked. It also can really change like your life for the better. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's also not to say that getting yoked or fat loss won't change your life for the better too. I think that oftentimes, the fat loss is the conduit for other things to happen, because the goal is not that we get to 8% body fat. The goal is that we have the confidence to pop out of the shower booty bone naked and stare at our partner in the face, right?
Yep.
The goal is the confidence that we have to take, you know, self-love nudes of our, in the mirror and be
That's
proud of what we see. The confidence is wearing whatever we want wherever, the goal is the pregnancy, the et cetera. Like nobody gets to tell you your goal, right? At the end of the day, like you get to choose what that is for you. But the thing that I think that we sometimes get lost in, and some of this might be like a body positivity thing, right? We're like, well, we're so body positive that we encourage shitty habits. We're so body positive that we encourage shitty lifestyles. And I think that you can both understand that you need to improve, right, to get where you're trying to go, while also still loving yourself where you're at today. It doesn't require you to hate yourself, right? The TikToks that are flying around, like body, my goodness, losing fat or wanting to lose weight is fat phobic. It's not. It's not.
Yeah. I have these conversations all the time because, I tell people, I'm like, I'm not a fan of body positivity. I'm going to say it right now. I'm not a fan of it. I feel like it's an incredibly harmful culture because, like you said, it's gone way too far on the end of the spectrum, right? It's promoting a lot of unhealthy things. But what I call these women who are coming in, I'm like, let's think body neutrality. Okay. Let's think like, instead of like, you're doing this because you hate where your body is at, right? Let's do it just because like let's at least respect the body you're in and that you're here today. And that's really important. But it's okay to have things you want to change. That doesn't mean you don't love yourself. That doesn't mean like anything like that. It just means it's matter of fact, like you want to change this. It's going to increase your confidence. Let's do it out of respect for your body, not out of hate, but also not give the excuse of, oh, I love everything about me. I don't need to change, because that's false too.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's one of those things I think that we can get lost in the sauce, right? You want to go ESG, you want to go DEI, you want to go down these paths where we do things for the sake of doing them to appear XYZ. Like I think that's just unfortunate, and it's not necessary. And I think that it's not my place to tell you, hey, you, not even as a woman, but you as another person, you don't look the way that I want you to look. Like, get the fuck out of here. That's not the goal, right? But if you Ashley sit in front of me and say, hey, coach, I want to improve in this area, it's also not my job to tell you you're okay the way that you are. You don't need to change.
Right. Because what is that going to do for that person?
You're condemning people to be as they are, as uncomfortable as they are with who they are right now, but just accept it because it's positive. It's better to be this way.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Right. And, and you don't need and this is one of the things, like, because I'll tell people, especially like they'll come to me a lot of times with this like hefty goal, right? I have this goal weight that I want to be at. And then we get the weight loss, maybe not to their goal weight. And they're all of a sudden I see compliance drop off, right? I see like things start going wrong, and I'll get them on a call and I'm like, what's going on? Like, I was like, I understand these are like, once you get to this point, like protocols are going to start getting a little harder, right? You're going to start giving up a little bit more things. And I was like, okay, now do you want to be there? Do you want to be like competition lean, that 8% body fat for like men and then higher for women? Do you want to be that way, or do you want to have this balance? Because that's a big thing for us, is finding that balance with being able to have your drink, having the sweets like at Thanksgiving that your grandma made, things like that. And I think that's important too, to know like, okay, maybe now is when we stop and then we just maintain and like hang out here.
Yeah, I also think it's important to understand with that specifically, like, first of all, where's your tolerance? Where are you trying to go? And what are you willing to give up? Because it's not about where you want to be. What are you willing to give up to get there? Because you're going to have to sacrifice. The lower and lower you go, I also think it's extremely detrimental to most people to think that anyone that's on stage is 8% body fat.
Yeah.
Those cats that are on stage that are near death, that have to get IVs after getting off stage, are closer to 3. And that's not sustainable. Period. End of story. They do it for shows, to be at a place where they're as dry as possible. Carb refeed, right? Pump up, right? Your body fat percentage is lower than you can sustain. And I think it's interesting because people see that as the pinnacle of health, right? Oh, here's 8 exercises to get your abs looking like mine. Oh, I forgot to tell you I'm on Tren, HGH, D-ball, and TRT.
Yes.
Whoopsies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't need anything but chicken, broccoli, and rice. That's it.
Literally. And that's why it's so funny. I'll have clients send me, I'm like, you know what? Send me a picture of what you want your goal to be. And if they send me some stage lean person, I'm like, cool, let's talk about it. Let me tell you what they're doing. And I'll get like my coach Katie on the call. I'm like, tell them about your experience with your first bikini show, and how she's also I met her through my cousin. It's his fiance. So I was like, tell them about how we're at Mama's house and we're all eating good, and you're sitting there with your coconut oil and grilled chicken, and that's how you got so lean. And now you're struggling with your metabolism and she's open about all this, so I feel comfortable sharing it. But and how you're struggling with your metabolism being in the tank still a year after your show because of how unhealthy it was. But yet people are popping off on Instagram with the fire flames and everything, and they're like, "Yeah, queen, like that is what I want to be." And I'm like, no. And that's why it's important to be as transparent as possible. I feel like with these journeys, and a lot of people who are selling these like programs and stuff like that, they're not. And it's
someone selling a hip dip program and people not understanding that anatomically, the leaner you get, the more probability there is for you to have hip dips. Someone is genetically predisposed, right? All you got to do is follow Brett Contreras for a little bit, and you'll hear this exact framework run down, that hip dips don't go away when you get leaner. Hip dips actually become more apparent when you're leaner, because the hip dips are there when you have less body fat percentage. Anatomically, that's what happens, and that's how it happens. But you know, Gina down the street, and not our mutual connection, Gina. It's not what I'm saying. No, absolutely not. Gina 123, right, on TikTok with no picture on her profile, is selling a booty building PDF and telling you with Photoshop pictures of people that are on all kinds of gear, right, doing all kinds of things, that someone can get there in 8 weeks by eating 800 calories. Like, that seems to me to be a massive, massive problem that the whole industry suffers from, outside of the one that's selling them a $49 program. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. Or the girls who get their BBLs and they refuse to talk about it. I'm like, I'm sorry, sis, but you do not have glutes like that with zero hamstrings. Like, I can spot that from a mile away, but like the average citizen, I feel like can't. They just, because they don't know like your anatomy the way that it's supposed to look. And it is, because I got on a call with a girl and she was like, let me send you this program that I was doing. And I was like, okay, yeah, let me see what you're doing. And I'm like, literally every girl in that program had a BBL. I'm like, no. And they're buying it left and right.
Well, I mean, people are usually not informed consumers, right? Because everyone with a white coat or a DR or a PhD or an MD or what have you, anyone that has any of those things can just spout one thing or reference one study that no one else can understand. And now, next thing you know, you can shill as many products as you want. Period. End of story. Anywhere, you know, anyone can do it on social media. I mean, and I think the biggest case that also makes this very apparent is the rise of Andrew Huberman, who I don't think is a snake oil salesman. Let me say that first. But
not fire.
Huberman Lab. Oh my goodness, neuroscientist out of Stanford, not Sanford, and has a podcast where he just breaks down studies, like literally breaks down meta-analyses and observational studies. He's a PhD. He runs a lab. Okay, he's not God. He doesn't know everything, but people take him, even when he's talking about stuff outside of his discipline, to know everything. And so anything that he says gets then re-quoted as fact, but it's an interpretation, right? And he says it's an interpretation, but that I think is the biggest, is literally one of the biggest cases. Or anyone that comes on Joe Rogan or comes on Dr. Hyman's podcast or comes on Lewis Howes or comes on any Mind Pump, anywhere, like anywhere that comes on one of these podcasts that has notoriety, like all of a sudden what the guest says is evidence for truth. And that's just not the case, right? You got to use your noggin and think. Not everything is true. And half the time, go ahead.
I said that takes effort. And
it does.
They don't care to. And you know, I'll have clients send me stuff, and I'm like, okay, well let's look into it, and I'll send them not just a studies, multiple, and let's see what the common trend is, because you can go out and search for whatever study you want for confirmation bias all day long. And people don't want to do it.
No, for sure not. So you have an MPA, right? That's something that probably helped you at the SO and at the PD?
Yes.
Helped you some there?
At the SO, because that's when I finished it.
Okay. Helped you at the SO. What the hell is it doing for you right now?
Honestly, my first thought was absolutely nothing. That was a waste of money. But no,
That's okay. That's a viable answer if you got
that's
supporting
the
details.
yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind. But honestly, no. The amount of research papers, the amount of just the amount of sheer research that I did in that program and learning how to do that and how to compile information and put it into something that like the general public can read and
Hmm.
understand, especially as it relates to criminal justice policy and things like that.
Hmm.
And because, I was in my MPA during all of the riots and stuff like that. So that was all very prevalent. And so I think that really helped me when it came to training because I can take a lot of the information and filter through it and see, what is accurate, what is not, what's being kind of stretched a little bit, and then really decipher it for my clients. And then also on social media when I'm trying to put out accurate information for people.
Okay. And speaking on the actual release of information, is there any reason why you yourself are not a host
What do you mean?
of a podcast where you're pumping out episodes with all that knowledge in the noggin?
Ooh, I don't know. It's never been my thing. Like I told you, like nervous level high.
Hmm.
I love
That's
talking.
fair. That's
I
totally
love
fair.
talking to people. I'm a little social butterfly.
Hmm.
It really fills my cup to be around people and to talk um, but I don't know when it comes to like broadcasting things like
Hmm.
this, it's like
Okay. Let me ask you another question. What's your mission with the live? Where do you want to go?
a loaded question. When I started the company initially, my sole mission was just to
Mhm.
educate women, was to empower women and show them what life could be like. But that has evolved, right? That's still my mission. That's the core of why we coach. But when it comes to like the business side of things, my mission is freedom to buy back that time. With law enforcement, I mean, we missed countless events, holidays,
Mhm.
everything like that. And just being able to like take my laptop and work at the beach and hang out with all of my family, or just like pop over and have lunch with my mom, or because I'm very family oriented. That was my goal, was just to self-sustain, not to be crazy rich or anything, like we all want that, right? But
Mhm.
that's not my end goal. My end goal is time freedom, especially for when I want to start my own family.
Okay. So you're in a spot where maybe you're not trying to start the family ASAP, not right now. Like you just got into marriage, honeymoon, etc.
Yeah.
So if your end goal in business outside of just financial freedom, which I totally get, is to educate and empower, what better way do you think that there is to educate and empower than long form media of you, the person that people are literally getting coached by, having access to?
Yeah, no, it's fair. Fair question. And it's funny because I've had multiple clients who have came to me and they haven't said podcast, but they're like, because they watch my check-ins and stuff, which is a video, and they're like, Ashley, do a YouTube. They were like, you are quirky and funny, and people would love to just like listen to you talk and like because you have a personality. And I'm just like, I don't know. I have enough trouble like making reels on Instagram, let alone long form content of myself. I don't know.
Yeah, well, a YouTube is the same thing as a podcast. The difference is that on YouTube it's all video based, and on podcast it's just audio. And um, a little pro tip here: all you got to do is record the YouTube video and then just strip the audio and put it on a podcast.
Yeah.
That's literally how everyone does it. It's the
See what
fastest way to do it. So look, I'm not gonna press you on it, but I will say that it does seem odd that if your end goal is to educate and empower, that you wouldn't be in a format that can educate and empower people before they ever pay you a dollar.
yeah, that's fair. Dang, hot steamy right now. Okay.
We are here. Whoopsies. So let's talk about your approach with clients, because I want to respect your time. We got about another 10 minutes here. But your approach with clients. So I understand how you approach people that have no understanding of how to move weights, work out in the gym, etc. But how does the approach differ for age groups? Like let's say like your late teens, 18 to like 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, and then up from there.
Yeah, so when it comes to the younger, I've worked with a couple of like I think like 15, 16-year-olds who have like a lot of weight to lose. My approach with them is very different than, let's say, like a 30-year-old woman who comes in, because, my goal with younger people is just to teach them foundational habits, not to get them so hooked on, counting everything you're eating, like macros and everything like that. And just really just getting basic movement and setting them up for teaching them how to like make balanced meals and stuff that's going to set them up for long-term success. So that's really how I approach the younger kids. When it comes to like my age, so I'm 27, when it comes to like anyone in their 20s, 30s, a lot of times their goals are physique related, right? And so we're a little more nuanced when it comes to that. I mean, that means things like counting your calories, your macros, being really consistent in the gym, and getting more nuanced with that. And then when it comes to our older clientele, a lot of it shifts to functionality. So then we start to see that switch back to almost like with the younger kids, right? We start to see that switch with more balanced meals, just getting movement in. It's funny, my older people, they're like, we've had as old as 70, a client who's 73, and they're like, you want me to do a burpee? Like, do you know how old I am? And I'm just like, if you do a burpee, you can get up off the floor when you fall. So, and they're like, and no one wants to talk about that, right? Especially older women. They don't want to admit that they're getting older and that things like that can happen. But I'm like, that's what our focus is on. So let's not think about how awful this exercise is. Let's think about what it's doing for you. And that's kind of how that shifts depending on the age group.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you ever have people that are in their 40s or 50s that want aesthetic goals though, like your 20-year-olds?
Yep.
And so Absolutely. Do you kind of do like a blend there?
Honestly, so I found that, this whole notion that just because you're old or older, sorry, I don't want to say that you're old at 50, but just because you're older, look, my 50-year-old women are like, come for me. But just because you're older doesn't mean that your metabolism is shit, right? And so it's very similar as if I come into working with a 22-year-old who has been eating like no calories. Oftentimes these older women, especially, they really are all about no carbs, eating low amounts of food. And so I reverse diet them, bring up their calories just like I would a 22-year-old, right? Protocols when it comes to nutrition, very similar. And it's so cool. And it's honestly, the older women are so much more compliant. I feel like they're just like tired of the bullshit and they're like, let's do it. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And like my mother-in-law is actually working with my Coach Katie. I refuse to do family anymore. That's a whole nother story. So she's working with Coach Katie. She's lost over 20 pounds and she's 65. She's also lost I can't remember what % body fat. She just sent me like her in-body scan and she's like, oh my God, I never thought I'd be gaining muscle at this age and like leaning out and feeling good in a bathing suit. And I'm like, yeah, because that crap of that victim mentality of just getting older and accepting it is that's what it is. It's crap.
Yeah. I mean, those are also the women that grew up on it's cardio or nothing, right?
Yes.
Weight training makes you bulky. Eating any carbs will make you huge. Eating protein makes you huge. Excuse me. And that's the era they grew up in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we were getting told that over and over and over for years and years and years. 40 years, the doctor's saying, don't weight train. You don't need to weight train. That's for people that want to get on stage.
Yes.
And for men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's not too great. Well, if your 50-year-olds do come for you because you said that they were old and they won't be here much longer, it will mean that they listen to the podcast. So, if that's the case, well, at least they listen to you talk, right? And this will be a great first instance of you speaking longer form that should, or perhaps could, inform you doing some more of this with or without other people. 100%. Ashley.
Maybe.
We'll take it one day at a time, but I do think that people would like to hear from you because Reels and Instagram, that's cool. Twitter, that's cool. TikTok, that's cool. But what if it disappears?
Yeah.
Then what do you do?
Yeah, fair enough. And honestly, it's crazy because I love YouTube. I love podcasts. It's like what I consume all the time. Especially with marathon training because I can't listen to the same 4 songs over and over again. And so I love it. So I don't know why I have such an aversion to it, but you're right.
Fear.
Yeah. Well,
Fear of failing in public, right?
yes.
If you fail now in your coaching journey, right? If you fail even like micro fails, like small L's, if you fail now, your team knows it, your hubby knows it, maybe some of your
Mhm.
friends know it, but that's it. If you fail on the public stage, releasing content like this, or you feel like you failed, it will smack a whole lot more people. But something to keep in mind, though, about failing, right, on this kind of format is if you failed, nobody saw the shit. And if nobody saw the shit, then nobody's thinking about you. And if nobody's thinking about you, then no one knows you fail. You know
Fair
what I
enough.
mean? Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like
Not even fair.
if it flopped, well, no one saw it. And
Yeah.
nobody saw it. Well, then did you really lose?
Yeah. And
Tree still
honestly,
fell.
yeah. And honestly, like with, cause like I hear a lot of creators talking about like, oh, my friends and family like made so much fun of me, like when I was getting like 10 views on these YouTubes that I was posting and stuff. And then they grew into what it is and they're all eating their words. So like, you're
Yeah.
not wrong.
Yeah. And when your ad revenue that runs on your channel that you never had to find the sponsors for makes you more money than your mom, dad, your sisters, your brothers, your family, what have you, do in a year, and it makes that for you in a month, well, then, I mean, they can eat their words, and it is what it is. Everyone
We're,
close to you, not everyone, but a lot of people close to you, just like with me, probably will make fun of you. And that is what it is. You know, I put time into making thumbnails with pictures of me on it, making all kinds of different faces. And like, yes, I get made fun of. It's all good though, because one day, if I do it long enough, it'll be unreasonable for me not to win.
yep.
And whether that's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I mean, at that point, what are you going to do? Right? At that point, it probably shouldn't matter anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it. I'm doing it.
Last question here before we jump off. What has been the most difficult situation you've ever been in as a coach, and how did you overcome it?
Ooh,
This is client facing too. This isn't
we're
like your mindset.
no. Yeah. So the most difficult, I have never before this one client, had to fire a client. I am a firm believer in like everyone can be help. Everyone can be like, we can work through a lot of shit. And this one client was just so draining on my mental health because, you know, no matter what protocols I gave her, no matter how much I was willing to work through things, she wasn't compliant and she was just consistently bad mouthing me, not even like to the public, just like telling me how bad of a job I was doing, even though she wasn't even doing the things I was telling her to do to see results. And so I was like, you know what? There is such thing as bad money, honestly, and I'd rather just let you go for the sake of my mental health for you. I think you could probably find someone that would be so much of a better fit. And I don't know why that is. And that was just that I think she just had some things going on she needed to deal with. But I think that was the toughest part was just finally letting go and admitting like, okay, this person can't be helped right now. That was tough.
Fair enough. How long ago was that? Ballpark. You don't have
Gosh.
to expose her.
Well over a year.
Okay. So not more recently. We are not
Yeah.
still dealing with the trauma from one of our clients almost trying to rip our heads off.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you have a sales call here coming up soon, so I want to probably wrap it there. Is there, first of all, before we go into kind of outro, anything that you want to leave anybody with? And then also, where can they find you?
No, thanks for having me. You can find me, I don't even know what my Instagram is. I think it's Ashley Trawick. Yeah, I just changed that. So we'll hope that's right. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and then my business page is Alive by Ashley. Come check it out.
Okay, and you got a website, and we know you don't have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, no,
What
you too.
about anything else going on? Got a TikTok for like the coaching side, or just for you personally, or?
I want to say Alive by Ashley for I don't even manage that TikTok, anymore. I'm like the worst. I should know these things. But yeah, we have an Alive by Ashley TikTok. You want to go check it out. We share recipes, tips, education, all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
So,
this was your moment to shine, and yeah, you got the ball tossed in. You just did not dunk.
yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
Okay.
you dropped it in the air, but that's okay because I'll link everything below. So anyone that's listening to this, all of her handles, everything to do with her and her team will be in the description here and on streaming and on YouTube. So you will not be able to miss it, even if she cannot even spell it. That is all good. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for making the time. We're going to cut the recording there, and we will catch y'all next week.